everybody, Tom and Tim from PC Gamer here at Valve's booth at GDC. And Tim, you just got to try Valve's lab demos in the Vive Pre, is that right?
Yeah, it's another series of tech demos, essentially, kind of showcasing what the Vive can do, some kind of proof of concept stuff. One of the things I found most interesting, you're kind of ushered in through this kind of lab hub type thing. The first thing I got taken to was this classic sort of mountaintop sort of setting, the kind of things I used to use to advertise HD TVs because it's so sort of like this amazing vista and stuff. But you're standing like on this kind of rocky outcrop, and you get that immediate sense of vertigo that VR does really well. But I've kind of seen a ton of things like that before. What was cool about this one is you can see that this is something I've written about on the site quite a bit. How do you nail movement in 3D space? Even being able to walk about, you've obviously got the limited amount of room that your apartment or your living room has. And they've gone with, for this one, the kind of teleport system. So you have the Steam controller in your hand, you tap the circular touchpad, and that brings up like a kind of arcing green aiming thing, and then there's like certain spots in the landscape you could then teleport to, and it worked really well. I mean, obviously there's going to be like plenty of games where that's not suited for, but it seemed like of the kind of movement solutions I've seen, pretty elegant. You also had a little robot dog hopping around the landscape with you, and you could pick up sticks and then throw them for him, and he would go chasing off after them. So that was pretty neat.
And that robot dog, I saw a little bit of on the screen. Obviously, I didn't do the demo, but it was such a testament to me of like Valve's ability to create these really cool, interesting just characters that are so just oddly compelling and cute.
Yeah, and the thing with little creatures in 3D as well, someone else I was talking to was telling me this, is that there's like a kind of, if you build creatures that are bigger than a cat but smaller than a dog, your lizard brain is panicked by them because it goes like there's a beast approaching us. But I was fine with the dog. It was pretty sweet. And then so that demo ends. This portal kind of orb type thing appears, which you then pick up with your controller and then thrust into your own face, and that takes you into the next demo, which in this case was a kind of like fortress protection archery thing. I really like this one. So you have like you use both the controllers for this, the left hand for the bow, the right hand to grab an arrow, and then as you knock it, you get kind of a bit of that haptic feedback that sort of vibrates, so it feels pretty satisfying. And you can also dip the arrows into like a kind of a fire brand thing, and then these little kind of cartoon dudes would be like running around this sort of platform areas trying to get to the gates of your thing, and you had to like pick them off, and they were like exploding barrels. And aiming in Vive I found like to be really like surprisingly intuitive and satisfying. It might not have seemed that way from the way I was spamming shots into the ether, but yeah. So some of the guys had like shields, some had helmets, and you had to kind of like be quite theoretically quite precise.
Well, it seems like one of those things where it might just be a skill you have to learn. Like when you pick up a bow and arrow for the first time in real life, like you're not going to be able to shoot it well, So it's not a surprise that if they get it close enough to one-to-one, it's going to be difficult in VR too.
I definitely had like a feeling of like I wanted to try and go Legolas and see how quickly I could like notch and fire, but there was it was good fun. But again, like proof of kind of concept stuff. And I think one of the things is, so it's interesting seeing how people are finding ways to combine the two controllers and use them in conjunction.
So what else did you see? Did you see anything that really kind of changed your mind one way or the other about the Vive or VR in general?
So the other things I played were, I played like an aperture lab type thing where you were given these orbs. I can't remember what it said you were doing to them, but you were basically like firing them into the depth of the lab to knock down these great big towers of boxes, some of which had like exploding bits in and some of which had other portal bits in, and the physics of that were great. But again, like it was a cool physics demo, right? And then the final thing we saw, which I guess was like the kind of the big fanboy moment, was an ILM made Star Wars thing where you're on, I guess it's Tatooine, that's the sandy one, right? The Millennium Falcon flies above, lands, R2 gets out, Han's talking to you about like something's wrong with the Millennium Falcon, so you have to press some buttons on a bit that you lower down. But it was honestly, that was like quite rudimentary, and I think that sold itself pretty heavily on just the fact like, hey, Star Wars, you like Star Wars, right? And like, of course, they give you a lightsaber and some stormtroopers turn up and you can kind of like deflect the bolts back at them. But I actually felt like quite underwhelmed by that, because I guess I'm looking for, like you were asking before, like is there anything that change my mind? Well, no, because I'm already pretty sold on VR. Like, I'm really convinced by the technology, and I think having spent quite a bit of time with Vive, because we have one in the office, and a lot of time with Oculus at the show, the Vive tech is much more forgiving, I think, in terms of like how you get it set up. You don't have to find quite such the sweet spot to get like good focus and a good experience. And I think although it's heavier, the comfort's great. My issue, I guess, would be what we've seen today is more cool demos, and I really want to see like what's Valve making in terms of actual games. Like, what's Valve's big game for their own platform going to be? And I think that question still remains unanswered, but the tech's still great.
Well, thanks, Tim. Those demos sounded like a lot of fun. And for more of our coverage about the Vive and VR in general, check out PCGamer.com.